Hello and welcome back to a new Paragon video, and this one's a little bit different for you, something I've not really done on the channel before. It's a bit of a podcasty style discussion on the version 42 update, the major update that's just hit the game, the new dawn, the big change to the way that you generate your currency, like gold in the game instead of CP, of course the cards, and all of the in stuff like attack speed and the new way your abilities work and time to kill and all of that. So players have reacted one way or the other. Some love it. I've seen a ridiculous amount of horrible hate comments about the update, and I'm joined by Ace today to talk about that basically. So we both have a mutual friend who played the game for the first time in a little while called Exalted Panda, and I was there when he was playing his first match on version 42, and he absolutely hated it. He didn't like anything about it. He found it confusing. He found it irritating. He found it unfair, unbalanced. Everyone felt kind of broken. And then very quickly he uninstalled Paragon after that match. And I said to him, "You've not given it a fair try there. Give it another couple of games." And so he did the next day, and I found him doing viewer games with you in his 10th game in a row, and he seems to be really into it. So what do you think that is? Do you think that's just the fact that everyone seems to react really bad to this, or it's actually bad? I don't know.
I mean, I kind of see where Josh or Exalted Panda is coming from, because when I first played the game, I was like, this is so bad. I was like, well, I guess I'm quitting YouTube now, and I'm done with this, because I only wanted to do YouTube for Paragon. I don't really like any other game that much. So I was like, they just ruined something. And then they were like, you need to give it at least 5-10 games. I was like, all right, I've committed so many, a year to this game. I owe them at least 5-10 games, right?
Exactly,
so then I just played it a bit more, and it grew on me. There's still a lot of big problems, but I think the card effects and the gem system is probably the saving grace here, because if that wasn't good, then this game would be terrible.
It would have probably killed it, I would say.
Exactly.
Which
yeah,
a lot of people are saying it has. So for me, it was a really similar situation. We both got to be in a early PTR version of the game, and this early build, I remember there was a big group of people that got together to sort of talk about the update and give a bit of feedback, and 90%, the main objective of these players in the PTR doing this testing was negative feedback about it, and we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like this, and it felt overwhelming to them, I guess. But then they hit it with a big update, and you told me that it made the game a lot better. But I had the really similar sort of reaction, which was, I really don't know how I feel about this. If I think about the cards and all the new things and the XP, I'm really for it. It changes the game in a really positive way, and it's probably a better way. But it really felt like, for whatever reason, the execution was really weird. The deathmatchy style, the time to kill, and the lowering of skill in certain ways is scary. But as I played more, I have found a lot of enjoyment out of it, but I'm not 100% whether I'm massively for it or massively against it, but I am enjoying it currently. But the question is, will I in a week's time, or will I in a month's time, and all that. So that's sort of the major topic of this discussion for me and Ace, is do we like the update? So we'll get to that with a conclusion most likely, but let's talk about some of the main objectives, which is do you think this is better for a new player to play and learn, or harder? What I'm saying is you've got Dave. He's never played Paragon before. He might have played other MOBAs, he might not have, but he's playing Paragon for the first time now in version 42, and he has no clue about card upgrades and the old cards. He just has this new system in front of him. Do you think that's easier than what it used to be to learn?
Okay, so the thing is when we were in the PTR, we were like, how does this system make it easier compared to the old system? And the most of the reasoning was that it's 3 cards, right? How can you get 3 cards wrong? There's a lot of ways you can get 3 cards wrong, but it's less likely to get it wrong. You just pick 3 cards, and then you just go about your game. And they said that even if you buy gems, you're still getting power from gems. So there's no real indication at the moment that you need to buy gems, but maybe there is for new players. But as long as you're buying gems, you're still getting power, so you don't really need to buy cards. In the worst case, right? And if you're a new player and you're going against bots, because it forces you, you're gonna win the bot game according to them. But having said that, there's like so much more stuff to this card system that I'm like, it's you kind of like took the complexity out of making a deck, and now it's like, well, now you got to figure out your gems, you got to buy your right gems at the right time, and you can't undo it because there's no undo button. And then you got to make sure that your deck adds up to only 25 attribute points in whatever you want to spend. And
Yeah,
then
you're right.
like you go on to like things like the attack speed, the time to kill. Like, how do you give a new player a chance to understand what's going on if everything they see dies so quickly? You can't really understand what's going on. You don't know how you died because you die so quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if we look at well, there's been some examples. Obvious one is like we've all had that game where we had someone on our team and they've never actually equipped a deck or bought like a single card or item or anything because they just have no idea. In this system, it's obviously way more obvious, and when you play, they like. I remember my first game when they force you to play that bot game. It really forces you to go, this is how you put cards on, this is how you get stronger, and then it does it again when you're in your first PvP game. So that's good, but it's not really like a tutorial or like a proper explanation or anything. If you look at a game like Overwatch is nothing like Paragon, but if you look at Overwatch, the first time you play it, it puts you in this little map. No choice. You don't have a decision. You have to do this. You have to go into this tutorial. And it's like, this is how you shoot. This is how you use your second ability. And then it shows you like the core concepts of the game. And that's it. It's like over in 2 minutes. I feel like Paragon could massively benefit from something like this. But we're a year and a half maybe, or getting towards that, into the life cycle of this game right now in its early form or whatever. Like a good year at very least from early access release in beta. And there's not been a tutorial of any kind. And the reason is probably the fact that, well, we couldn't get a tutorial because Monolith was coming out and it's a major change to the game. So there was no point building like a tutorial for new players back on Legacy. Okay, well, now we're in Monolith. There's been 6 or 7 months of Monolith. Can we get a tutorial? Well, no. We're in New Dawn and it's radically different. So that tutorial is pointless. So it's really hard for them to do that. But my opinion on that specific topic is make a tutorial. Make a 2-minute, 3-minute tutorial that properly shows stuff. We have like the little thing where you can go for a 1v1 thing. You go kill that steel and you hit him and he dies in 3 hits. The tower dies in like 2 hits. It's not like a fair showing of how to play this game, to be honest with you. It's something, step in the right direction. But in my opinion, if you plan to change the game massively every 6 months, still make a tutorial specifically for that current state of the game, because players like we saw Summit come into the game, massive streamer, hugely big for the game, and it was unbelievably overwhelming and confusing and difficult for him, and he's played League of Legends, to understand the game and get into the game because there isn't a way for him to learn. So the lower end players or the newer players might feel overwhelmed by this, but to get back to the question, is it better or harder? I would lean towards it being better for new players, this, because the old system, like, it was weird and confusing and there wasn't enough information. You have, like, a bunch of YouTubers and streamers out there to watch and learn from, but should a game be relying on them to learn a game? I don't think so, to be honest.
I agree.
So if I jump over to some comments that I've seen on videos, I was referring earlier, there's some players that have had positive and negative reactions, and there's been a lot of negative. Some of the most obvious ones that we're talking about right now is from someone called the Flamingo, and it says, very hard to understand this. Another comment from Riot Fire 2, as a pre-Monolith player, this new system makes 0 sense to me. And then I had these 2 comments that perfectly contradict each other within a moment. Dustin said, this hasn't got any less complicated. And then another guy saying, Verdictus, I'm going to give it a fair shot, but it looks like it's just been dumbed down even more. The feeling I get from this is just like, people have seen this massive change and it's scared them and they've not really looked into it even remotely. For me, I'd say it took me 1 game and then I was like, okay, that's how this system works. And then, like you said, a couple of games to form an opinion about it, a fair one anyway. But the problem is, me and you, we have a stake in the game. We've been playing it for years. We know people. We have friends in the game. For people who have played the game a couple of times, what is the reason for them to keep playing it so that they actually start to enjoy it after 6 or 7 games. Shouldn't it be fun right from the beginning? Like, that's my concern.
Like, I mean, the statement does kind of contradict itself, but I think what's more complicated about the game is that, okay, the gem and the card system is probably what people find complicated, I assume. And then what they've dumbed down about the game is the actual gameplay itself, right? Because you can attack so fast, there's no real skill in, like, okay, a melee hero, he just holds down a button. Everyone can be Greystone if you're a melee hero, in my opinion. You just remove the penalty on basic attacks, and you just hold the forward button, and then you hold left click, and you just hit stuff. And, like, there's no real skill to last hitting because they give you a card that basically allows you to last hit for free if you suck at last
powerful.
hitting. Yeah, and then, like, everything can die in, like, 1 or 2 hits, so then there's no time to react. So you could be the worst player in the world, and you can just, like, suck the whole game, eventually get to full build, assuming the N18 didn't end, but it's unlikely, and then you just one-shot someone and then win the game. Or you buy, Awaken the Emmerich or something. You know, that card that flips the wave. Like, you could be losing, I've been losing so many games, and I've seen people with 3 inhibs down. All they do is they just let their team fight, they run off, flip the wave, and because it's a super minion wave, they can take the core with it. So it's like that. The gameplay's been dumbed down, but the gem and card system is not that complicated. But I guess that's what people find complicated.
Yeah, because there's over 100 new cards to sort of go through, and like I remember when I made my first deck, I was super overwhelmed because I want the best cards, but what are the best cards? And every card is like, that's the best card. Every card is so good. So it's hard to pick and choose and only be able to equip free at any time. So speaking about that, there's another comment from Edwin Garcia, and he said, and quote, "Worst update ever, crap card system, rest in peace Paragon." So let's move into the specific topic of the card system. Do you like it, the new cards?
Yeah, I do like the new cards.
I fucking love it.
Like, there's not enough cards because there's, like, some affinities that you really struggle to look for late game, like, in my current games, I'm like, all right, I'll buy my 3 first items, which are usually like 1 cost in each attribute point or whatever, like 1,000 gold or something. And then my next card will probably be like an 8 cost card or something, or like a 5 and a 2 or something, or maybe a blink for 4. But it's like I don't really find myself hitting any mid game. It's more like, oh, okay, I get early and then I'm like mid late.
I can't agree
like,
with that more. Yeah,
it's really, really quick. So I think when they add more cards, but obviously, like, they are going to add more cards.
Yeah, of course,
but for now, it's like, everything feels a bit rushed to late game.
Exactly. We're talking about version 42, not 0.1, not 0.5, not 43. It's the current version of the game. And there is some awesome stuff out there. But exactly. I saw some comments actually about that. When they're building a deck, they find it easier to start with what they want late game and then try to fill it out. That's a good way to deal with that. But I agree. Late game, there's so much. You're spoiled for choice. Early game, it's kind of obvious choices in each role, like obvious choices. But mid game, every single deck that I have right now, I'm still thinking, how do I change this? Because the mid game feels weird. So maybe that's where they need to sort of focus there. But specifically on, do I like the new card system? Yes, I think it's way, way better. Less confusing, straightforward in what you can do, less limiting because you can unequip and re-equip as much as you want. Which I do really like. And there's so many more new, unique effects. So, yeah, I agree with that being good and maybe needing more cards. But I remember I was streaming the other day and someone said, there doesn't feel like there's enough cards. And I was like, dude, there's like 100 plus new cards. And you're like, there's not enough cards? But now I do see it. There's that whole section that's so important, the mid-game section, that feels missing. Because everyone kind of gets late game every game. So moving swiftly, look at this transition into match length. Oh my god, so good. Match length. How do you feel about match length? Because everyone's always, well, I say everyone, a lot of people are always going, hey, why are Epic so obsessed with lowering match time? And we've actually been in a little discussion with Epic a couple times, and specifically, I can't remember who it was. If you know, tell me. But someone said, and they quoted like, we at one point wanted to lower match time, and we made a couple of posts about it, and that was back in Legacy. So they made released Monolith, and never spoke about match time again because Monolith was their way to fix it. So people still claim they're obsessed with match length. How do you feel about match length in version 42?
I think it's okay. I actually think it's okay. At first, when we were playing on the PTR, we were like, oh, match length sucks. But I was always like, yeah, I think match length sucks. But they did say that death timers were bugged, and the death timers are different on live, so it's complete. Like our opinion back then is completely different because
Yeah.
they changed it, right? So when I was saying match length sucks, it did because the games were ending so quickly. But now I feel like if you get a fair game and like like I mean when we play we kind of know who we're against and who we're with, and when you feel like that's a fair game, the games are going on for like 35 maybe 40 minutes, and that's a good length for a fair game in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then when you get games that aren't really fair, they end in like 20-25, which is fine with me because I would expect if I had a stronger team to win in 20-25 minutes.
I've seen games end at like 15 minutes, and not because they surrendered, but because the team just goes, well, Prime's up now at 10 minutes. Prime's easier to kill than like it feels like ever.
Yeah.
So the more characters than ever can solo Prime now. So it's possible to just go take Prime with like a dedicated coordinated team, and just go take an inhib. And at that point, you got an inhib at like 11 minutes, 12 minutes in the game. You're back, you just push. You can just end the game right there if you're a coordinated team. But which teams are coordinated? Moving into matchmaking, well, if you're a 5 stack, you can go against 5 players on the enemy team who are completely by themselves. And the elo system itself is so crazy, especially at elo cap, because what happens at elo cap is, let's say the elo cap's at 1600, like the internal MMR, not agora.gg or anything like that, internal MMR. The max cap at that's like 1600. At that point, you could be someone who is 1601, and you could go against someone who is technically 2500. We're talking a player who has just reached elo cap, is probably like mid-plat on Agora, and then he's going against someone who's like Grandmaster, top 10 on Agora, fantastic competitive player, and they're going against each other, or they're on the same team. It can happen at complete random. And you just had a game where, who was it on your team? Like platinum level players or something?
Yeah, some like 1500 players, so like just plat. They just got plat.
So probably just around that elo cap. And then you were against like people in like the 2000 plus who are great players, who you're happy to go with and against. Same for me, but not when your team is like players who can't cope with that. And I definitely don't mean any offense to players of that level or anything like that, but for you it's unfair. For your team who expect you to be a certain level, it's unfair. And the reason why this has been a problem in Paragon for a long time is because the MMR cap is too low, therefore unfair. But if they raise it, well, then the players who are these top 10, top 100, top 500 players have 3-hour queue times, and they go against the same 10 people every game. Like, it was a big problem for a long time, that back in Legacy. So matchmaking at like our level currently is pretty gross. It's like spinning a wheel, it's like...
Yeah, you're rolling dice, basically.
Yeah, rolling dice, exactly. And at lower elo, I don't know, I'd say it's pretty fair, pretty balanced, pretty good, except for the fact that you can be a solo queue player going against a 5 stack. And I saw someone tweet today, I think it was Shane Lynch, he said he wants in version 42.1 for it to be that you can't queue in PvP as more than a 3 stack, which I would like to see in the game, I think.
Yeah, I think that the problem is like, if I'm trying to bring friends into the game and we want to play as 5 and like trying to introduce 3 new people, like how do you do that then? Like, I can understand if they implemented, like, say when you hit MMR cap, it was like, all right, you're now in our internal MMR cap, so you can't queue with more than 3. That would be cool, because then if I wanted to just play with friends or introduce new people to the game, I could just hop on a lower account. Or if people probably have friends, they just want to play with casually as a 5, I think it's fine. But I would like to see that at MMR cap, because I feel like that's where it matters most. Whereas I'm not trying to say that it doesn't matter for the people at lower levels, but it just doesn't make that much sense, because at the end of the day, this game needs to grow. And if they limit something like that, which encourages you to bring people into the game, you kind of just limit your growth. Yeah,
definitely agree with that. Like, it's a really awkward position for them to be in, but the way I'm looking at it right now is what you're saying, just for like MMR cap perhaps. Well, maybe they should make it so MMR, hidden MMR, isn't hidden anymore, and we don't have to go by this corrupted, easy to manipulate current system that is Agora.gg with elo boosting and throwing games so you can have a bronze friend who's in your game so you can get more elo and all that crap. It would be great if we had like an actual MMR system to go by, and maybe it could just be you make it really clear that this is casual and it's going to be wiped or something. It's not a ranked mode. I would love to see ranked in the game when it's ready, but not a ranked mode, but just show your elo so we know who we're possibly going to be against, and then at that point maybe you'd be able to manipulate things at a more specific level as well because of that, as sort of like a temporary solution. Like I say with the tutorial thing, we obviously need a better one, but we're not going to get one, it seems, until the game is like in a really stable place. But it's a MOBA. When are they ever really in a stable place? It changes largely regularly. You look at the changes Dota 2's taken. That's a massive, hugely successful MOBA, and it's changed massively so many times as well. So it's a really tough place for them to be in. But it's good for us to sort of air our thoughts on that. But as you said yourself, we are coming from a perspective of players who are, let's say, higher elo, but not necessarily like competitive level, like Grandmaster level. We have more to learn and improve on, and we'd love to do that. But it's also really difficult when we have games where we're playing with players who are nowhere near our level or 10 steps ahead of us, you know? Because it's like you say, you roll the dice every single time. Okay, so let's go to a couple of comments here. Oh, here you go. Ty Salzler said, "Rip Paragon's uniqueness." What do you think about that?
I mean, I think the thing it has going for it is that it would always be unique because of the space that it takes place in, right? It's not a top-down MOBA, and it doesn't, from what I've seen of Smite, although I've never played it, it doesn't really look like Smite.
No,
so I
not.
think Paragon is unique in that aspect. The problem is like it might not be closer to MOBAs, but it feels closer to Call of Duty at this point because you're just shooting as quickly as possible and blowing things up. And the thing that makes it a MOBA is that there's towers and there's 3 lanes and you buy items. But like that's about it for me. It's like I don't know. I think it's difficult because this is just like they were like, here you go, here's what we have for Paragon at the moment, and we're going to iterate on this, rather than being like, all right, let's iterate on it behind closed doors and let people keep playing the old version. So I'm kind of in like 2 minds where like, oh, do we just give them time, and in time they'll fix these things that are broken and they'll adjust attack speed and all these other things and the time to kill? Or is this the vision they actually have for Paragon?
It could be. I mean, for me, like I said, I do really like the new card system. And it is unique. There isn't a card system like this in all the other major MOBAs at all. They all have like a shop. And we have a card system with this deck building thing. And it's become way more... the vision that they had has become way more real. And it does actually, if I think about it, feel like I'm putting together a deck. And when I'm playing in the game, I'm unequipping and re-equipping cards. And the cards aren't being destroyed necessarily. They might be consumables, but I can put them on and off. And I can put on 100 consumables if I desire. But there are mechanic problems with this current system for sure. Like, what do you think about how people have been calling and asking for a slot that only holds consumables and wards? Because actually, I haven't seen a ward in a while.
This is something we wanted when we were playing the PTRs. I think that was like the most requested thing, was like, you should make a 4th slot because then we can have wards and stuff like that. And then they were like, well, what's the difference from 41 and this, 42 division wise? And I was, well, the thing is that if you make wards cost say 1,000 gold for every affinity but order, then you're delaying, like there's that cost, right? You're delaying a card or you're delaying an attribute point just to buy a ward and just to give yourself vision. But I think I've gotten used to the fact that you have to just check the minimap way more, and that you're gonna have to rely on your support to do their job.
For sure. But like it used to be, in my opinion, that vision was way too strong to the point of a jungler can't really do the thing they're supposed to do, and you're playing this crazy mind game because of the vision that's going on. And at the start, we'd buy these dummy wards, they were called, where you just, everyone on your team, both teams, will pick up a card that's a ward that they go throw down, place, and then sell immediately, and then buy the real card. And you could start the game with 5 wards on the map on both teams at the beginning of the game before spending anything, which was ridiculous. So it's way too far in the side of vision. And then this side is the complete opposite. Like, there's almost no vision, and it's really limiting. And you have to drop an actual powerful card. Like, endgame, vision is so powerful and important, right? Especially around Prime, right? Could be game-changing. But let's say I'm the carry, and I'm the only one right now who can go put that ward down. Well, that means I have to drop that card that makes me massively powerful to go place a ward. Now I'm in a fight, now I'm really weak, now I lose the game because I bought a ward. Like, it's way too punishing the way it is right now. I do see where they're coming from in the perspective of, like, well, we want to keep the change, we have a vision, but, like, having a thing...
lack of vision, rather.
Yeah, possibly that, yeah. But, yeah, like, in my opinion, there really should be a way for me to buy a ward or a mana pot or something and have it not affect my major cards. Like, minor card slot or something that's just, like, above it, hidden away, tucked away, and isn't too intrusive at all. And maybe I can only hold one of those at a time. So if I want a ward, well, I can't have a potion right now. Something like that, you know?
Just bind it to 4 and then, like, just let us... Like, maybe I think in League it is where you can choose, like, some item to start the game with. Yeah. I don't know if it's League or it's some other MOBA, but it's like you can choose one item to start the game with, and they can have a ward or they can have something else in Paragon. I don't know. Just there's like loads of things they could do to make vision useful and more. I mean, have bigger impact and still keep it balanced. But like, I don't know. You need vision and you need knowledge and you need information in a MOBA to form a strategy. But you don't really have any strategy at the moment because, well, you don't really use vision.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, I see this guy here, so I'm just gonna go kill him. And like, oh, I'm getting ganked. I'm dead. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So, if we take a step away for a second and maybe read a couple more comments here, just blast through a couple. Okay, so here's a good one from Satoru. It starts very calmly and fairly and says, do all the epic fanboys finally understand that Paragon is heading towards a hero shooter with just a dash of MOBA? So all those who wanted 10-minute matches and less, well, enjoy. Well, we talked about match time. I haven't actually had a match that's been less than 10 minutes ever at any point in any MOBA. That's not how it works. That's definitely like ridiculous, extreme comment, right? It's usually how it goes on YouTube. But they do have a point with like the way that it is becoming like more of a brawler. And like you say there, with the vision, there's less strategy going on as well. So if we move into competitive, what do you think about version 42? Competitive wise, we have seen like a little show match at the exhibition, which is a bit of a mess itself. But is this better for high-end gameplay? Do you see like higher potential or less at the top tier of the game?
I think at the moment I see less.
I do, yeah.
Because, well, I mean, there's no real balance. Firstly, so it's like when people play Countess or Kalari, right? You expect 9 times out of 10 they're gonna win the game because those heroes are pretty broken at the moment. But going back to Vision, although I don't want to keep talking about Vision, it's like when you're playing at that level, it's all about strategy because most players at that level have got the mechanics down to a T.
Yeah.
And if you can't use strategy or you don't have information to create a strategy, then like what do you really do? You just like, okay, well, we farm, we gank, and then we team fight. But like there's no like, okay, let's dance around Prime, or let's set the lanes, or let's get vision control on Raptors. Like there's nothing of that at the moment from what I see.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it stems from the fact that we have 19 cards in each affinity, so you have a selection of technically, what is that? That's 23
in each affinity.
Oh yeah, sorry, 23 in each affinity. Although it should be 24, right? It's just like something going on there.
They remove cards.
Let's say they put those cards in or something, 24. Then you have 48 cards to choose from because you can only have 2 affinities. At which point you've got all these choices, all these things. Mid game feels limiting because like there's not enough mid game cards perhaps right now. Late game's pretty interesting. Early game's pretty the same thing for everyone almost. It feels.
Yeah.
If they were to put more cards in, with this new system, then I think the potential for competitive could be absolutely ridiculous. But the question is, and you look at the pacing of these updates and changes like this, when will we see any new cards after this update? I think it'll take us a sweet amount of time before we see any new cards. Like the visual update to the map, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
That probably takes priority over that, surely. So competitive, I guess we'll have to wait until the next major tournament. I believe there's a PCL coming up, but it's an NA one, so maybe we can see then and get a proper thing, because we've not properly seen competitive on version 42. But my current opinion, like you say, is that good system and all, but like pretty limiting, especially at higher level. It might be almost the same game every time that we're looking at with different teams. So that's a concern.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. So if we look back at Legacy and look at where we first played it back in OTs together, and then we had the big changes to it. We had like all the new characters that were coming out. They did radically change the game in a bunch of ways. Bigger map, slower movement with travel mode, which was a terrible mechanic, obviously, and they got rid of it. We can talk about like the feel and the epic vibe of that map that is, missed for sure. But at the end of the day, if we look at the game back then and pretend like mechanic problems weren't a thing and compare it to now, how do you feel? Do you think it's a better game now, or do you think it's maybe worse off? I don't know.
I think it is a better game, but you kind of lose like what initially drew me to Paragon, at least.
Same,
and probably a lot of people. And it's like, okay, they made the map, they made a smaller map, and then they increased a lot of things. Like now heroes have, in this current patch, they have different move speeds. Well, why did they try that in Monolith? Why didn't they reduce in Legacy, why didn't they reduce the cooldowns and stuff like that? Like, why didn't they try these things on Legacy and then say it doesn't work? Because I spoke to actually a lot of people and like competitive players, and they were like, this map is actually too small for how the pacing of the game is.
You know what?
This map is really cramped. The jungle at the moment sucks. Like the way they've
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Terrible. And then you look at the way they designed the jungle in Legacy. It's so well designed.
It was a jungle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, like you made a map smaller, and now you need a bigger map because of the changes you made. So why didn't you just make these changes in Legacy?
I saw a comment that was exactly like that. Like, I can't remember who it was that commented, but they said something like, just think about this. Version 42 on Legacy,
Yep.
I don't necessarily think it would be better. I could say that it would be worse, right? But now the map does feel too small. Now the map does feel too cramped. And when we start saying, like, what would we like to see changed in the game? Well, we've got a couple of things here from two commenters. We have Hamid, who says, it's really irritating to have like all of your decks show up. Like, you know how we used to be, okay, you've got 3 decks for Murdoch. Okay, well, when you're in game on Murdoch, you can only choose between starter deck and then these 3 decks. Now it's like I have like 40 decks or something, and I have to scroll through them all and find which of the multiple decks I've made for this character. It's really that shit's like obviously, hopefully, going to be changed. Like little things like that. But major things, like Brian has said, and one that we've mentioned a few times, I'd like the new system with the old attack speed. The attack speed.
For sure.
Do you think that's like a horrible thing that they've done, or I don't know? Like I'm pretty against it. I think like the crazy speed at which everyone's throwing out basic attacks. It certainly changes things. It's certainly weaker than it used to be, like the damage of the attack, so it's basically the same, but you send out more. So the idea is like, let's say I have a passive effect where, like Iggy, for example, he has a passive attack where if he hits someone, they take damage over time. Well, now that he's attacking faster, he's able to keep that permanently on, essentially, and keep it on multiple targets. Whereas let's say he has the same mechanic, but has a slower attack speed, well, now he's a lot weaker as a character because he can't do that as much. But it affects other things. So let's say I'm Quang, I'm Chimera in the jungle. I have a passive life steal or life regen effect. The more I attack, the better I get out of that. Well, because I'm just attacking like fucking crazy now, I can infinitely tank everything, and it's super dumbed down. In the jungle, I used to have to kite around, I had to meet certain timers, I had to go in a certain order on specific characters based on my build. I had to make a bunch of goddamn jungle guides to explain how intricate it was, and I loved it. It was so good, so intense, and the difference between a good jungler and an average jungler was obvious, because the good jungler would show up at a certain time and gank or invade or do something big before the average jungler has even thought about it. And now everyone's clearing about the same speed, no skill required, stand still, hold left click, mate, because of attack speed. So
well, yeah, I agree. Like, the attack speed is way too much, and the problem is that, yeah, it's like, okay, we increased attack speed, but we reduced the damage you did up until like 5 minutes into the game, when it's like, okay, well, now you do crazy damage and you have crazy attack speed, and then it just like Kallari. If you don't build Kallari with that insane one-shot build, even if you get the 10% damage card, she will 2-hit you because of how fast she attacks. You can't even react.
It's so insane. It's like a machine gun.
It's kind of stupid, and I don't understand why they needed to make the attack speed change. Like, I felt Monolith's attack, like 41 attack and damage wise,
was completely fine. Yeah,
I felt the time to kill was pretty nice, and like you were talking about making like guides and stuff. Well, like, people tell me you need to make guides for 42 on like specific heroes, but like you can't. There's nothing I can really say that's a guide for these heroes, because everything is so dumb now. It's so easy. Like, you jungle, and then, like, well, you can't really get a big advantage over someone.
I could make a really sarcastic and offensive video on how to jungle now, but I don't think Epic would appreciate that kind of shit talk, essentially. And there's no way for me to make a video that's a guide about jungle that doesn't come out as just go there, and then go there, and then go there, and then go there, and then by this time maybe you'll go here. And it's like, just
you finish the jungle at like 240, right? So you even have
faster.
20 seconds spare, or like
faster.
Yeah, you even have like 20 or even 30 seconds spare to go do a river buff, or just just chill and wait.
If I compare it how it was before, right? I'm absolutely on it, lean forward, fully focused. I do my clear in 2 minutes 45 seconds, like the fastest I can do, and that gives me a 15-second window to go gank the offlaner, or maybe invade, or maybe probably gank mid, right? And the reason I do that is because the enemy jungler is probably going to be at 3 minutes waiting his river buff, and he's not going to be there to help his mid. I go in, we gank, we get the kill, then I also get my river buff. The reason I got to do that is because I played my jungle perfectly, and I get a reward out of it. Exactly. Now it's like, everyone turn your brain off. About 240 you can go gank mid if you like, because you got 20 seconds to kill.
Yeah, it's like there's no reward for you playing better or kiting minions. Like, you just chill, hold a button, and the guy could just do the same thing. There's no reward for you being a better player, like, mechanically, and I think that's a bad thing.
Really?
It's like, you should be wanting to improve your basic mechanics, but if you say, oh well, you can just hit minions and stand there, it's kind of like, well, what's the point?
But outside of that, if I think about the jungle itself, it needs like a big rework, like or big change. Like, we mentioned it briefly a second ago. It's like this area with some basic vanilla minions that just stand there and swing at you. Look at League of Legends or Dota 2's jungle. Dota 2's jungle, for example, there are like 4 or 5 different enemy types. Some are stronger, some are weaker than the other, and they all have abilities. So, for example, there's a centaur. If 3 enemies go near it, it'll stomp, which is an AoE stun. So if you're playing like a micromanaged character, like you have like 2 wolves and yourself and one of the characters, you just micromanage and make sure one of those wolves doesn't come near it, so it doesn't stun you. And that's just one of the many different types of enemies in the jungle. And there are mechanics where you can like dominate these characters, these NPCs. So you could mind control this centaur. So now you got this little centaur running around that has a stun. And he only works for you for 40 seconds, but that stun can be extremely beneficial for the next gank as a jungler. Imagine mechanics like that in Paragon. We've seen red buff. Paragon. Yeah, we've seen the red buff, black buff, and of course green now. And we've seen some variety in that. It would be great if we could have exactly what you're saying, some variety in the things that we have, and maybe some cool abilities on it. But would that work in the current, well, it's a circle and you go around in a circle? Do we want it to be a jungle again? You know, these are all big questions that are really hard to work out. But what I do know for certain is the fact that the current state of the jungle is a sorry one, and the quality of what you're doing in there is brain dead, and of course really mind numbing because of you just walking around killing the exact same thing, except one of them's green.
I think you do the jungle real easy, and it might be to encourage you to fight more, but then that in itself is just making the game more of a brawler, because you don't have to worry about your health after clearing the jungle because you're going to almost be near full health. So that's encouraging you to go and gank all the time, and then you wait for your camps to stack up again, do the same thing and repeat. It's like if you have to go back to base to get health, it kind of slows down the amount of fights that happen in the game, and then the other jungler isn't doing the same thing. And I think that kind of takes away from being a brawler at that point.
I remember Monolith and the big change to get rid of travel mode. There was a big thing that was said that was, if you rotate for a gank, it's more of a commitment. You have to go all the way over there and lose farm, and if it goes wrong, well, then the enemy team is getting a big benefit there because you've committed to a rotation. In reality, at no point have I felt that in Monolith and in version 42. If I go over there and fail my gank, well, it takes me 1 second to go back to my lane or back into my jungle. As a jungler, I actually personally, well, I say personally, no, this is the best way to do it. You just run around and let your jungle stack up, and then make sure you clear it before they invade it or it gets too much or whatever. But it is a good thing for me to go gank because my jungle is stacking up and I'm getting more XP by not being in my jungle and then going and clearing it when they're like 3 or 4 stacks, or maybe more if it's that bad. So it's just, yeah, it's never really been that. And the reasoning is like the weird state of jungle right now, and of course how small the map is, especially with all these crazy movement speed abilities. Like you pick Kallari, right? Kallari jungle or Kallari offlane or Kallari wherever you put in her. You press stealth and then you pick up that card that makes you run faster for like 3 seconds. Nitro boost. You're like sprinting, like goddamn. You're ridiculous. You're the Flash running around in stealth. Like you can cross the map in like 10 seconds, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, so exactly why I think Legacy would be perfect for something like that, because you was like go into your jungle thing. It's like when you ganked in Legacy and you messed up, I felt that was then you made a mistake. Like you felt that mistake.
Yeah.
But on Monolith, you never really feel it. It's kind of like, well, you made a mistake, just go jungle.
The truth of it is we can say these things, and that's all great. But if I think about it, it is really fun to run around as the Flash, as Kallari. It is really fun, the current system. But that's the big question, is will it be fun in 2 weeks, or will I just be really pissed off that Kallari's just zipped from one end of the map without using ult again? I don't know. We're gonna have to find out, but I do think this is a good change. Like, if we have a conclusion here, I do think this is good for the game. I do think it's a step in the right direction. It obviously needs some major changes. I want to see some love with the jungle. I want to see the attack speed be addressed in some way. It'd be great to see some new cards, but let's be honest, that's probably far away right now. Unfortunately, yeah. But I don't really think they can just take the map and then scale it up in terms of distance. I'm not sure how they would sort of go about doing that.
I would like to see, like you said, about the centaur or all different types of things in the jungle. Like they were so creative with this card system, and they went crazy with the attack speed. Like, why don't you go crazy with your jungle? Because it's like just hitting the same minions over and over again every game, and the same 4 river buffs.
Yep. I like what they've done with like how it's a 1v2 in the offlane now. Like, it was different, and the way that you've got like the terrain that goes up and down, that's something interesting. The jungle originally, like you said in Legacy, was so cool. The card system's so unique. We have gems now, and they're unique. The crazy stuff that you can do with cards, like the Flash Kallari. There's a lot of fun and cool stuff in the game. They just need to keep going at it and try and keep themselves in check as they do it as best they can, because it's really easy to come up with a cool idea and then have it crazy, unbalanced, ridiculous. But for me, I don't think the game is broken. I don't think it's like unbalanced, because I honestly feel like every character's viable now, which is a fantastic thing. But I do say that minor thing, supports are in a sorry state. Muriel's unbelievably good. The rest aren't really that great. So who knows what we'll see with that. But I do think it's a good thing for the game. I just think it needs the push in the right direction. It's like, you know how we had like the foundation of Legacy and it was kind of corrupt in the so you couldn't build on something that was going to break on itself. So they made this big change and made Monolith, and it felt like a better foundation. And then they've set another foundation with version 42, and that feels like an even better foundation. They just have to keep building up. But that's what I'm saying. It's all great to have a great starting point, but we're a year in. Could we see some building, you know, not more foundations?
Exactly. It feels like they're just constantly relaying foundation rather than building on top of it. I agree with that.
Yeah. All right, well, there you go, guys. That's our little chat about it. I thought that was going to be a 20-minute thing. It was a little bit longer than that, but we'll see what it comes out to when I edit it. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Ace. I appreciate you having a chat about it.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to check out Ace, he does loads of Paragon stuff on his channel. You definitely check it out. Link in the description. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more stuff like this, see more stuff like this, then always let me know with like a like or a comment or whatever. Share your input, give some feedback. Use your brain for 1 second before you write that comment. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.